Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in for with me today for Major Players Straight Talk About Money. I have my friend Jillian Sidoti. She's a capital raising expert strategist. She's my friend. She's worked with me forever. I know her for a really long time, and I know you're going to enjoy today. So thank you again for joining me today, Jillian. I really appreciate it.
It's always great to talk to you, Victor. So I'm absolutely happy, thrilled even to do this.
For sure. Well, this is exciting. I always tell people like you need to connect with people who are playing a big game in their space and people who want to be major players and to have straight conversations that you actually understand about money, growth, business, real estate, all of it. And that's what I wanted to kind of do with Jillian today to kind of help. And be honest with you, true transparency, I get the opportunity to connect with people that are doing big things too. And I get to ask questions and I like to share them with you rather than cooping her up inside of like some Starbucks and it's all private and you guys will never find out. So thanks. So Jillian, real fast, you want to kind of like give a quick introduction about you, what you're doing, and things like that, so that way people can understand that?
Absolutely. So Victor and I met because I was a capital raising attorney and I sold my law firm back in 2020 to Nate Dodson. And
Mhm.
he and I now are partners in this company, the company I'm currently working on, called Investor Attraction Academy, where we help real estate entrepreneurs and not just real estate entrepreneurs, any entrepreneurs who are trying to raise capital for their deals by using automations and AI and
Mm.
all that buzzword stuff that you hear these days. But we do it right and from a very organic perspective, where we really just try to drill down and figure out who your audience is, and
Mm.
then we work to attract that particular audience. But prior, I practiced law for 15 years, specifically in the real estate and this capital raising space.
Mhm.
But prior to that, and through that, I was in real estate development. I've always had a love for real estate, and I've gotten a thrill out of real estate. I'm constantly looking. I never stop looking at real estate.
Right. Yeah. It's like the hot thing. You drive by any building, it's like, oh wow, look at that. I'm
Oh
the same
yeah.
way.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've almost gotten into more car crashes by, swinging my head to the left or the right,
Yeah.
while driving because I saw an interesting, piece of real estate.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, yeah, me too. It's like I can't help myself. It's like I'm like either looking at the ocean or I'm looking at real estate. So there's kind of this thing. So it's interesting that you say that. I didn't know that about you, that you were in the development side of things too, which makes a lot of sense because it's kind of like you get it. You get it from start to finish, from flag in the ground all the way up to like the big day where everybody's, celebrating this thing and then they move on to the next project. Is that how you kind of got into the security side of raising capital or no?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So I got into the securities side of raising capital is because I actually never thought I was going to be a lawyer. Even when I was in
Mm.
law school, I thought I'm just getting this degree. I'm not going to actually practice law. And whatever happened, I think we have a mutual friend in this, Curtis Gabhart,
Mm. Okay.
who in San Diego. I used to work for him. I worked for his company, Gabhart Investments, and we did
Right.
condo conversions. That was my first foray into the real estate investing space. And you'll
Huh.
like this story because I think you and I have similar battle wounds in a lot of ways. Like, yeah. So I'm in law school. I decide I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to go into real estate. So I go to every like real estate investing firm in San Diego and see like who's gonna hire me? Like, what can they hire me for? And I have a degree in finance. Well, I still have the degree in finance, but
Yeah.
I went around and I said, listen, I'll do your books for you,
Mm.
I'll do your financial statements, whatever. And so that's how I ended up getting in with this condo conversion company. And we were doing condo conversions. And let me tell you all how amazing real estate was in 2005 and
Mm.
2006 in San Diego, California. You you blinked and you made money. It was awesome. I mean, and we're talking like, I mean, we would buy units for like $100,000
Mm.
and, put in new electrical, put in new plumbing, you know, zhuzh up the place
Yeah.
overall. Put a new a huge thing doing we did was like put in new concrete everywhere for so because concrete like work makes a huge difference in
Yeah.
the appearance of a building, and new facade, whole thing, and then stage them. And we would sell those units we bought for $100,000 for like anywhere from 3 to 450.
Yeah.
And we were making money hand over fist. And so the title company, like, and we were everybody's best friend, like every provider that you worked with, because you were making money and you were spending money, right? So
That's
every
right.
time you had a closing, you had to title company, real estate agents, whatever. So we were, we were pretty popular among the class, if you get what I
Yeah.
mean. And so so Fridays would be like fun Fridays. We'd do whatever we want because we're making so much money. We didn't really need to work that hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we would go to like the Del Mar racetrack because the
Get the
title
booth.
company like invited us to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
members club. And oh yeah, everything was amazing until like mid 2006,
Right.
and everything started hitting the fan. It wasn't just a market shift, it was a legal shift. There was an
Mm,
economic shift and things like
right.
that. And
Yeah.
it was it's so stressful.
Yeah.
But basically what I was doing for the company at the time is I managed all the construction budgets. I
Mm,
did all the construction draws. I was in charge of getting the loans. I was in charge of making sure the equity holders were taken care of and filled out the subscription agreements and things like that.
mm.
So yeah, I did all of that stuff. And so I
Right.
knew exactly what a private placement memorandum was and exactly what an operating agreement and exactly a subscription agreement looks like by the time 2007 rolled around, and we were like fire signs.
Yeah. Selling units for break even or keeping the apartment
Yeah,
building.
get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
funny
we
because
got yeah.
during that time, so I was doing stuff in Hawaii at the time, right? Because I had like,
Oh, I
yeah,
remember because you
yeah, because
came to me
that's when we
probably
met.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
So people don't know this, but I initially started doing a syndication with you, which was called the Bell Investment Group, right? And then I brought in a partner and we changed it. And then we didn't do the syndication because we weren't going to bring in anybody else. So we did a JV and we switched it over to like Central Pacific Group. But initially it wasn't anyone else. It was just me. I was just cutting my teeth. So to your point, I remember when you had it was like gangbusters with money. Saying because San Diego's market is similar to Oahu's market, Honolulu. A lot of people buying the apartment buildings, condo converting them, or they were buying like these 10, 20 unit buildings, condo converting them. The legal was like what, 50 grand. You put, 70 or 50,000 into a unit, bring it up to snuff, and you sell off all the units. So you might buy them for 100,000, sell them for 300. They're making, let's say they're netting 150 to 200,000, 200, depending on who they have in the thing. So I remember that time, and then the window shut. So you had a lot of people that bought these properties, like apartment buildings to convert, that they were like, oh, wow, these don't pencil because the market's shut closed on them. And now they're sitting on these apartment buildings that do not cash flow. And they're like, we got to get rid of this thing. I remember that. So you were
Yeah.
talking, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, I remember that time. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
But isn't it weird?
it's
Looking back though, I say it all the time as a joke. It just felt like it was happening to me. It didn't feel like it was just like the market. Looking back now, we're like, oh yeah, the market crashed. But back then it was like, oh wow, what's happening? And it started a trickle effect. Anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. So you pulled a scab.
you know that's exactly what I meant by that though. Like because so I stopped. We basically sold all of the properties, or we got close to selling all the properties, and we went from like, an 8-person company to like 2 people.
Mm,
And
yeah,
that was when it was like, okay, it's over. We're done. We're not buying anything. We're not growing this. We're just gonna try to survive. We fortunately didn't get foreclosed on anything. And there were condo converters who were just giving properties back to the bank. They weren't
hmm,
even waiting to be foreclosed. They were just like, just take it.
yeah,
And there was one company that I admired greatly. Like, when you're watching like I think everybody who's listening to this can relate to this in some measure until you have enough life experience where you're like, oh, maybe I don't want that. which is that you see the person whose perception is that this person's doing really well and they're going gangbusters and they're
Yeah.
growing super fast and super big and super amazing. And there was one such company back then that I won't say the name of them, but I remember being like jealous of them. Like they
Mm.
were buying like, 200 units in Oceanside or whatever,
Yeah,
and they were going to
yeah.
convert 200 units. And and then one day the title company, that's was thinking us to the track,
Right.
comes in and tells us so and so just gave back 250 units to the bank. And
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, that sounds like the worst thing ever to happen in the
Yeah.
world. Like I couldn't handle that. So, like I think, that's a message I want everybody to have out there who's listening to this is that you gotta trust your research
Hmm.
and your instinct, like those two things together. Like
Mm.
it I learned anything in that time of like great grief.
Yeah.
It was grief because it was stressful. It was stressful and it was
Mm.
like, oh, we worked so hard and only to watch it like slip through our fingers.
Yeah.
Um, but the one thing I would say is that, you know, you have to constantly go with you, not just your intuition, but also the research you do and trust those things and know that you're exactly where you're supposed to be whenever
Hmm.
wherever you are. Like
Right.
that's it. Because just because somebody's growing super fast, and we see Victor, I'm sure you and I could spend this time gossiping
Yeah, we
about
could.
what we see right
Yeah,
now.
like I know the truth. You know what I mean? Like I see stuff or because I get those probably like you, I get those phone calls from some really successful people. They're friends of mine. And because I learned the business during that time of like 90, 98, 97, I got into the business. I get into the business when things are crashing, or I get out of it right before, and people are like, you're crazy. And then it crashes, and I'm like looking like, whoa, I missed it. So people are like, how do you fix stuff? So I get those calls, like you said, from people who are like, hey, I got a problem going on with one of my deals. How do I fix it? And I'm like, oh, just do this. And I'm like, okay, good, thanks. But it's like you don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. We're in 20, the roaring 20s, as I like to call them. We're still in the roaring
yeah,
20s, I suppose, but like the roaring 20s, like 21, 22. And I was watching people who I knew who weren't my clients, by the way.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I've seen my clients make some plenty of mistakes, don't get me wrong, with capital
yeah.
raising and buying properties. Try to warn them. But as their lawyer, your job is to like get them the documents that they need in order to be successful.
Right.
Your real estate expertise can only go so far. I mean,
Hmm.
I, there are times I've stopped clients from either closing on a property or offering terms that they couldn't deliver on, which honestly, another hot tip for any out there looking to raise capital is
Yeah.
never offer more than you have to. And more
Yes.
importantly, never offer more than you can afford to pay. Like I had one particular client who I knew it was a terrible idea. I told him it was a terrible idea, but he was so insistent. It's very popular in real estate influencer too, by the way. I won't say
Mm,
who it is.
there's a lot of,
Girl doesn't kiss and tell.
yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
But, yeah, but he saying like, oh, I'm offering like outrageous preferred return. It was an outrageous preferred return. I'm like, look, I understand how much you think this property is going to make, and
Mm,
maybe you're absolutely right, but like, it's not even a matter of if you can, you don't have to pay that
do it.
much. And sure enough, he was never able to pay that preferred return, and the
Right.
deal blew up in his face, and it all went to hell in a handbasket. And so, it's things like that. Like you don't, what the golden rules are like, you don't ever pay more than you can afford. And that goes for
That's right.
acquiring properties and that goes for getting investors through your door.
Yeah. And for me, selling it too. Like I've been involved on all
Yeah.
sides. So like I'm
Yeah.
I'm the guy that finds the deal, gets the funding lined up, even if I'm bringing in an investor or sponsor or a KP. And I'm the operator, right? Period. So I know just what you said, deals blow up when you sell too. Because like in
Oh,
multifamily,
absolutely.
it's like in single family, like, oh, you make money when you buy. And I'm like, no, you don't. You kind of make money when you sell. because you don't realize anything until you sell. And if you made a promise in the beginning based on your buy, you can't dictate what's going to happen 3 years from now because you know that your debt's like five, 3, 5, 7, 10 years long. You don't know what's going to happen. Hell, I was telling one of my partners, I was like, during the time that we held our properties, me and my wife almost got divorced twice. So like, so like, think
I
about it. Like,
bet.
just I never picked up the phone and call. And that being said, we sold our property. And I'm going back to this not knowing. We sold our last property in less than it closed in like January with me and Kevin. Kevin got killed in less than in August. So, like, had we still been in that deal, had we just held out, whatever, I'm not saying that something bad couldn't have happened, but things happen. And to your point, like, you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen. So if you make a bunch of promises to your investors and you can't dictate at the end, that is the same I always say, like, your equity partners are kind of their debt. They're not, oh, I can blow them off. Like, no, 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 they're debt. You need to underwrite them that way. And you need to also have a worst case scenario for them too in presentation. Like, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? So I agree with you on that. But that said, though, I wanted to ask this because I think this is important for people listening. Like, how was it when you were growing up? Were you raised about around money? Did your family talk about it all the time? What was it?
No, my parents were super cheap. Like, so
Mm.
here's the thing. My um I think this is why I get so ravenous about real estate now is
Mhm.
my dad was a government employee and my mom was a nurse and
Okay.
I was the oldest of five kids. We
Mm.
were very comfortable in turn because I mean, government jobs can be pretty lucrative, jobs.
Yeah.
And so we made like, we had what we needed, but my parents would do this thing where they constantly like would drive around and look at real estate. My parents
Mm.
loved looking at real estate, loved it. And they would drag us kids in the station wagon or the minivan, and to look at these properties and we'd be like dying, like, why are they making us do this? And I never bought a thing. Never bought
Mm.
anything. And then the
Mm.
older I got, when I actually started getting into real estate, they did something even weirder, which is, well, I don't know if it was weird. I get it, but they did this thing where they would like get every certification they thought they needed in order to be a real estate investor instead of just buying
Huh.
something.
Okay.
So like for example, my dad got like a house inspection certification and a
Oh,
real estate agent license. Like so he could inspect your home for you. He
yeah.
could be a real estate agent, but those were not the reasons he was doing it. He was doing it so he could buy real estate and then they never bought real estate.
Huh. You
So
know,
yeah,
do
so
you
that
think
really
people do that for like, because like sometimes people are fortunate, like you and I, we were fortunate because there's like real estate's such a big word. So I think a lot of
yeah.
people are like, okay, I'm gonna do something and that's gonna let me learn. We were kind of thrust into like go do a deal and here's how you structure it. But some people they kind of tiptoe into it, the lighter side of inspections, construction, sales. Do you think that was really like thinking that he was gonna learn first?
I think it's just part of being a company man, right? Like
Mm.
part of being like, and I'll give you an example. When I was graduating law school, and when I saw that the real estate industry was gonna die, I immediately knew that I was going to start my own law firm. Like I wasn't going to work for a law firm. I was going to start my own law firm. And that's actually a very interesting story because I drove down to San Diego and the day that I started my law firm, I drove down to San Diego from Temecula. And so for any of you that don't know Southern California, Temecula is about, well, it depends on the day and the
Yeah,
hour. But
could be an hour, two
Temecula is
hours.
about, yeah, it's about 60 minutes away from where I was working in San Diego. And I got into the office and it was just basically like there's nothing left here for you to do. The job's over. You're done. You're laid off.
Mm.
And I was like, crap. Like I had just bought a new house and I was like, nervous about that. So I got in the car and I just started dialing for dollars
Yeah.
immediately. Immediately started dialing for dollars like hey, I just want to let you know, I called anybody in my Rolodex.
Mm,
Hey, I just want to let you know, I just started a law firm. So if you ever need anything, let me know. Hey, I just started, and like I made probably 20 to 50 phone calls on that drive from San Diego up to Riverside County.
mm,
And just as I was crossing over the Riverside County border, I got my first client.
nice.
And yeah, like somebody called me back and said, "Gee, I'm so glad to hear you. I need your help on getting a copyright." Like it was can you come down and meet me in in La Mesa?
Yeah, so you like turn
Literally,
around on the
all the way
highway.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But it was that. That was it. That was how I started my law firm. But I remember my parents were so frustrated with me for
Mm,
starting my own law firm. They thought that was so risky. They just did not understand entrepreneurship on any level
right.
at all. They thought you can't just start your own law firm. You got to go work for a lawyer first before you can do this. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to pay the mortgage? How are you going to like da 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 da? And it was like, I don't
Yeah,
know, I'll figure it out.
right.
So I think that's part of I, I meet a lot of government employees
Yeah.
specifically who just don't get the entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't make
Mm,
them bad or wrong. They just don't get it. It's never been
yeah,
taught to them. They've never seen it.
right. 1000%. I know a lot of, military
Yeah.
people, government employees, things like that. Anybody who has
Yeah.
that security, it's almost like if they're like a contractor, like, oh, I'm a GS 13 or 15, it's like, what is that? But it's like you said, it's like, I think you said literally it could be a quote on a shirt. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Like, that's the entrepreneurial marching order back into the flames. It's like, what are you going to do? It's like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And you just dart off. Cause like, I don't think I've ever not said that. You're like, how are you going to do it? Like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Cause it isn't that you don't have a plan, you just don't know the process. And it's like, dude, I'm just gonna call
Right.
until somebody says yes, and then I'll pick up the pieces. It's like, so that's cool. So, but were you always like that? Like, how was, I told you I was gonna like, how was little Jillian? Were you always somewhat entrepreneurial, go against the grain? You said you had five
Oh
siblings.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to make my own way. I had a job. Like I got a paper route when I was like 11 and then I
Oh, wow.
started
Doing it.
babysitting other people's kids. And I mean, when I was in high school, I had like two different jobs.
Mm,
I just loved to work and I loved to make money.
right.
And I liked doing projects. I love, you know, creative and doing projects and
Mm,
there's a lot of creativity that comes in problem solving. But that was
with
another
it.
thing I loved doing was problem solving
Huh.
with being an entrepreneur.
Right.
So if you have those attributes, you should definitely do something with them
Hmm. I
to
agree.
build your business. But yeah, I've always but again, I was raised in an environment where entrepreneurship was not encouraged at all. So
Huh.
I couldn't really identify it till I
Yeah.
was way out of like undergraduate school.
Got it.
Like, then I started seeing like some of my classmates who were, I was a business major. And so I
Hmm.
started seeing some of my classmates outside of college or even during college starting their own little businesses. And I was like, I can do that.
Yeah. Also, that's the other thing too. It's like, oh, I can do that. It's funny too because like that you said that. So like we were talking about this, before we started, and I was like, there's a pivotal point in everybody who actually, I call them major players, right? Like if you're playing a big game in your field, it was either exposure or an experience. But
Mm.
it's always fork in the road. Was that fork in the road for you? It's like walking into the office and like, hey, you're done and getting in the car, or was it something else? Like you knew it was coming, but you were like,
So I was entrepreneurial before that point. Like, so I got, what happened was I am a type A with type B tendencies is what I like to say. Like, if you want to miss a plane, I'm your girl. Like
right, right. That's funny.
travel mishap, I can provide that for you.
You could do that.
Um, if you want to do like, last minute spur of the moment planning, I can help you with that. But like that's kind of how I approached my education in a lot of ways too, because even though I was like really good at school, and if you gave me a task, I would rise to the occasion and be great at it. But when it came to like personal planning, I was like a hot mess. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is like I was in college, and when I was sitting at I worked for I worked for like a retail store in the ghetto in Boston. It was a chain of retail stores
Yeah.
owned by some Hebrew guys. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. They were awesome guys. And I have a lot of funny stories from that job, but it wasn't like a real job. It was like a bookkeeping job, like a couple of
Mm.
hours a week. So I'm sitting at my desk at that job, and I'm realizing I graduate from college next week
Mm.
and I don't have anything to do. I
Right.
didn't have
Right.
a
It's like, all
job
right.
lined up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, I'm just gonna
I didn't have a
work
job
here.
lined up. I didn't have like anything lined up. Like it was just like, oh no, I'm graduating next week and I really like part-time. And in hindsight, I probably should have just been like, maybe I should just work part-time and find myself. But um,
Huh.
so I had applied to one law school because I had a professor who recommended that I go to law school. So I applied to one law school that I didn't miss the deadline on. See, I'm telling you, type B
Yeah,
tendencies.
there you go. Like, yeah, I
And
think I
so
did
I
that.
called them because yeah, I guess I'll apply to this law school. So I called the law school and I was like, hey, I applied, but I never sent you my LSAT scores or my grades.
Yeah.
And you never rejected me. So,
Yeah.
so
So
what's fine. Let me in. And
yeah.
she's like, well, what are your grades? And I was like, I told her I had good grades. I had great grades. I had great
Yeah.
grades. I had a good LSAT score. She
Mm.
goes, hold on. She puts me on hold. She comes back. She goes, we start next week.
Ah.
All right.
Yeah. It's like,
So
yeah, I'll be there.
I literally did, yeah, I'll be there. Sure. So I finished my classes at school in undergrad simultaneously while
Mm.
going to classes, my law school classes. But I hated law school. I
Mm.
hated wannabe lawyers. They're like, if you think lawyers are nasty, hang out with some people who want to be lawyers. They're even
Ah.
nastier. They can
Mm.
be horrible. They're horrible to each other and what have you, and whatever. So I ended up dropping out my first year of law school and started a record label and went on
Mm.
tour. And that was my very first like legitimate business. I had like an LLC or a corporation or whatever, and a bank account with and a
Yeah, with your band name.
website and the whole nine yards. And we went on
There you go.
tour and we made money, and but we spent more money than we made.
There you go. That's what bands
So
do.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was funny because it's kind of like that meme or that cartoon where the guy is like chipping away at the wall and he almost hits
Mm.
diamonds and then he gives up and
Yeah.
he walks away.
You give.
That's very, very, very much what it was like for me,
Mm.
unfortunately. And there was a point in time where my he's my now my husband, he's been my husband for 20 years.
Yeah.
I turned to him and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't live like this. I can't live in a state of like constant fear and worry about this. So go back to law school, and that's how I ended
Mm.
up back in law school. And then the rest of the story. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I'm gonna go
Right.
into real estate and so on and so forth.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So,
like constantly running
yeah.
from it. Yeah. It's funny. You're like, I don't want the ups and downs, but then you got into real estate. It's like real estate is, I always tell people like what is it like being in real estate? And I'm like, well, it depends on how long you can dangle from the noose. If you can hold your breath long enough, you'll make money in real estate. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of the game. Like it's capital intense. It is the quirkiest business you're ever going to be in because you'll have some guy that'll walk past you that you think can't rub two pennies together, and he owns half of downtown. And I was like, then you have somebody who you're just like, who checks all the boxes, and you find out like they're not what they say. So, but it doesn't matter about the characters in the play. The real estate is the play. So it's funny, but like once you kind of decipher all that, like you said,
Right.
it's like, you know, real estate itself doesn't make any money. The money has to be injected into it. It's traded out. Then you're back to the feed or famine, who can do this and time yourself. It's like being in the desert with like a little flask of water. And it's like, if you make it, you don't drink all your water, you'll be fine. So that's cool. That really is. So, man, and thanks for
Yeah,
saying all that because it's interesting because it's like I remember now, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, you did have a band, and like I remember all of these things that we've talked about over the years, and it's like coming together. And now I kind of can see, I see how it actually ties into like you know what I'm saying? Like, because we talked, so it's like I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense because it's one thing to kind of know somebody from what they do professionally, and it's another thing to know them on a personal level. So hearing it and then watching it all tie together, it's actually pretty cool. So that's cool. That really is, man. All
oh,
right. So you
yeah,
guys, so as of now, you guys bought this company that you have for the investor stuff, and you said something. I can tell you, we have this very similar DNA. Like, I am great at getting stuff done. I'm great at avoiding problems because I watch the playing field and I watch everybody else get smashed. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I know where to go, but there's this thing about it where it's like, to other people, it seems like last minute. And I'm like, you
right.
said earlier, like just picking your avatar. Do you know I still haven't really picked an avatar? Every new year, I'm like, you know what? You were talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm like, I'm just gonna stick to doctors and dentists. I actually did it like in January. And I was like, I'm gonna do that. And then slowly start to creep away. Everyone like on my, people that we know, they're like, who's your avatar? And I'm like, doctors and dentists. But, and I'm like laying that foundation. So are you finding that that's a lot of problems with people who are like, I don't have a problem raising the money, because our fund's already set up and things like that. We went through you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
But what it is like the consistency of knowing that, hey, this is where we're going and laying the foundation.
right.
I feel like I haven't really committed to that. Not because I can't, but because sometimes I don't have someone cracking the whip on me, and I'm a deal guy. So I'm like, dude, this deal's awesome. And then I'll talk to the people I want to talk to and need to who will listen. But I haven't put together that very specific. If somebody were to say, who's your avatar? I don't have a gag reflex answer. Is that normal?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, yes, it's totally normal. And I actually want to dig a little deeper on the doctors and dentists thing, if you don't mind for a second,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's not just about the doctors and dentists. That's a
Mhm.
profession, right?
It
And
is. It
it's an
is.
easy way to talk about an avatar. But what we really want to look at when we're talking about
Mm.
investors, is we want to look at the psychographics of that investor, right?
Okay.
So it has to go beyond doctor and dentist. It's got to
Mhm.
go to like the doctor who has made a ton of money, is driving a really nice car, has his kids in private school. He can't quit but he's making so much money and he doesn't have the time nor the inclination to learn the real estate industry.
Right.
What is he afraid of? What gives him joy? What does he want more of? And you've got to get into those psychographics. Or dentists, like dentists, one of the things about dentists is dentists have the highest suicide rate of any profession.
I
Why?
gotta write that down.
Right? So how, so we look into, and I'm not trying to get morbid with anybody, but
Yeah,
these are
that's
the
okay.
things that you have to look. Yeah, these are the things you have to look at when you have to humanize people beyond their profession in
Right.
order to have effective campaign for them as an investor. Because
Mm.
once you personify them, I mean they're people, so they're not
Yeah.
things. But the problem that I find with a lot of entrepreneurs is they lack personification and humanization of their investors. They just view them as a income bracket, an asset bracket, or a profession. And
Mhm.
if you can expand beyond that and really look at them as people, give them names.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of my clients, he was targeting engineers from Ford Motor Company,
Hmm.
because he was investing in Detroit and he knew a lot of engineers from Ford Motor Company, people who had good paying jobs but had always worked for the man and really wanted to get in real estate, but like basically describing my dad but
Right.
working for the difference is the name he gave this guy. He gave this guy like the name Raj, like
Mm.
Raj Patel. Why?
Yeah.
Because he knew that a large number of them were Indian. And
Right,
like,
right.
so yeah, so then you get a whole different like you talk to them in a totally different way.
Mm.
I have a client right now who's very involved in the Catholic Church,
Hmm.
and he in Florida, he also he attends, he's part of the Hispanic like ministry at his church.
Mm.
And so I said, you got to start doing all your ads in Spanish.
Right.
You got to start talking about Christ
Right,
because
right,
that's who
right.
you are.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
who you are. And that's who your demographic is. And that's what psychographically they'll relate to that. And I don't mean
Hmm.
like, because I always personally, this is personally, when people start overly talking about Jesus in their
Yeah,
business, I
it's
start
like,
to get
okay, buddy.
really suspicious.
Yeah,
Okay, that's enough.
yeah. They're like, okay, buddy, that's enough.
Yeah. So, calm
Yeah.
it down a little bit.
Yeah, we got
Like
it.
Jesus was you know, he wanted for nothing. Let's
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm always like, what did you
down.
do? Like, what did you do to push that hard? But no, I totally get that. I totally get it. And that's great that because, and here's what I've said. Most of the people that say yes to committing to invest with me, um, it's funny because like from a marketing perspective, we'll just use straight marketing, right? Like less about what and who. A lot of people, especially in the
Yeah.
marketing space, it's problem solution. But a lot of the people that I talk to, when I'm like, what problems are you having? You know, if it that's probably why I never pick an avatar in the past because I'm like, usually these people are generally happy. They have money, they want to make more money. They're like, yeah, I'm interested in looking at your stuff. So when I try to ever be like just people that's already said yes, I'm like, what problems do you have? Like really nothing. Just want to make more money. So I
Yeah.
kind of whittled it down to
Tell
time.
you.
Yeah,
They're
I
never
whittled it down
going
to
to tell you what
time.
their problem is. They're never going to reveal
Yeah,
that vulnerability. Are you kidding me? You
yeah.
have to figure it out. So, and
Mhm.
everybody, like celebrities, everybody has problems.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody
for
has
sure.
problems. So
Well, do you
you
think
gotta figure out what their problem is.
so? Do you think the problem is the similar scenario? Get you can go by. The problem is a similar scenario in the sense to where it's like the traditional. You know, how people like it's pain, but like I'm a business person. I don't think in like, and this is just me, which is where I got to kind of make these changes as we begin to scale and do bigger things because we got this big push coming up
Yeah.
this year. Like I don't think in a level of pain. When I do really well, I will get a bunch of people that I know have money together in a nice place, talk, connect them, do a little, hey, here's what we do. Love to connect with you guys. And then when I do talk, I'm like, so what are you trying to get done? What are you trying to solve? And to your point, as it relates to I guess I have this thing to where it's just like my own guard of defense. If somebody goes, what kind of pain are you in? I'm like, I ain't in no pain. I just want to make money. Like, so like, then it turns into, okay, so what problem do you have? And then it's like, well, I need more people, or we need more access to deals, or we want this quality of deals, not this one. So like, there's a line between pain and then problem solution versus pain solution. To your point. So thanks
Right.
for saying what you said because a lot of my people are actually doing really well, but they don't have time and they don't actually want to learn and they don't want to sit through a 90-minute webinar about stuff. They're just like, just call me.
Just tell me what you
So
got. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
There's a certain level there where you have to get to know, like, and trust. They have to get to know, like, and trust you.
right.
So you work on that through understanding who they are as a person, understanding not just what they need, but what they want. And
Mm,
then
mm,
just having conversations with them to show that you're the person that they should be turning to. And there's all kinds of different ways to do this. I was just talking to somebody who's doing student housing right now. And I
yeah.
was like, yeah, I'll tell you who your avatar is without even talking to you any further. Your avatar is Gen X parents.
Hmm.
Your avatar is the same as who your actual client is for student housing. Because
That's right.
people often think that their client for student housing is the students, the college students.
Yeah.
That's not true. The
Their
avatar
parents.
is the Gen X parents. And there used to be, I used to say this to people who were doing
Yeah.
student housing, and it used to be boomer parents, boomers and grandparents.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
Gen Xers, right?
Yeah, it's like
So it's like, okay, so it's Gen X parents who are sending their babies off to college. All right, so they want their kid to live in a safe, secure, clean, um, apartment that has the amenities that their little precious child, needs while being away in college,
that's right.
blah, 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 blah. Now you flip that on those same parents, the right ones, right? You niche it down to who the avatar is, and you go, that's my investor. Now you're telling that parent, like, you're not just investing in your child's future, schooling, education, you're investing
Mhm.
in your own retirement
Right.
through student
Right.
housing. And that's how you can like you can you know draw from the same well twice.
Yeah, yeah. So how would you do mines? So we're San Diego, more class B plus, class A, great locations, things like that. We got some deals under review right now that I hope we get one of these deals.
Yeah.
But it's still like I did exactly what you said. I tell everyone, it's like, dude, like my attorney was like, you're doing it the hard way. Like the fund model, but I wanted to build a business because to our point of earlier, I've watched so many of my buddies who like, oh, I'm gonna go raise money, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And they're just like hamstrung. I was like, dude, you can never get out of that. You can never get off of being strapped to that Bronco bucking. I was like, how do I build something long term, even if it's hard? Once I get figured out, I mean, like it's taken me a long time to kind of get the levels to be like, okay, I didn't know that. All right, now I got to implement. Because it's but doing the blind raise based on the access to the deals in a market. I know it's harder, but the consistency of the same avatar is good. And right now we're just like, hey, look, this year we'll take a quarterly push. I got a couple of more commitments I got to do, like 25 million. And I was like, once we do that, we're going to close this fund out, finally close the deal, and then we're moving on to fund two. But we will have laid the foundation with the people we have. So would it be
Mhm.
the same thing? Like, do you lay the foundation with an avatar if we're like, hey, we just want like 30 to 50 people in this last commitment part, and then we're gonna pull the trigger and go.
Okay. So first of all, you're in a really good space because San Diego's a place that has like real housing crisis, right?
Yeah.
Like an palpable, tangible housing crisis. Not everybody wants to live in Lakeside, um,
It's
or
hot.
Santee, or what have you.
Yeah.
So you have a real opportunity here. And honestly, San Diego is full of wealthy people. I think
Hmm.
Avatar, you should be like, one of the things about San Diego in general is that it has this burgeoning like biotech environment.
Yeah.
So I think you really need to start focusing on biotech professionals.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Because they're there. They're
Mm.
there, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can see it, they can understand it. And
Right.
also, I would also look at focusing on university professors. Like, for example, I know
Mm.
that they have a real hard time with housing people at UCSD, which is right in
Yeah,
La
they
Jolla.
do. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So those are some things I would also look at. And then um I would also focus on smaller real estate entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we have some of
Because
those.
smaller real estate entrepreneurs can't get into those deals by themselves, and you can give
Mm.
them an opportunity to do so.
Right, right. And that's good too because we're getting ready to do a lot more stuff with, the monthly meetings, investor base only, and then we're starting like a small real estate club where it's just
Yeah,
other investors, things like that, where, we're kind of not to offer my stuff, but to get them together, but naturally, we're all together, so it's easy to kind of like
yeah,
hear what they're saying. I avoided that for a long
yeah,
time because, I used to work with Dave and I just kind of had a bad taste in my mouth about the hierarchy of that experience, like this group and here, and it's like this total thing. Especially that, being not only in that educational space, but also a student too, that actually succeeded to rise out of it to be like, I don't want that. I don't want that thing. But
yeah,
now like, yeah, so but now I'm like, it's kind of necessary. not from a educational standpoint, but to build the audience of people to whereas they get the opportunity, we get the opportunity to talk and things like that. So, yeah, but thanks for saying that because that's the mark right now. And I was just wondering because you talk to so many people, one, they're doing it right and there may be something missing, or they're doing it totally wrong and they just need like it's kind of like looking this way, like, dude, just look a little right here and you're fine.
Yeah.
And you probably come across that. So the business that you guys started, is that what the concentration of what you guys are going to be doing is putting people on that right path? Or not started, you guys bought?
You have to do is like you put them on the right path and then you accelerate them on that path. Right. So
Mm,
it's no good. Obviously the first step is getting them on the right path because there's no point in accelerating you on the right path, on the wrong
off the
path
cliff.
rather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get you on the right path and then we accelerate it through automation and AI.
Nice.
And we put out messaging to those particular avatars automatically through
Mm,
mostly LinkedIn, but we'll also do Facebook and Instagram.
mm.
And it's not what you think it is. It's not like direct messaging San Diego real estate. You should call me. Like, that's no way of getting somebody to know, like, and trust you. So
No.
you really have to make it like much more personable, much more like understand it's going to take time, it's going to take messaging and the idea isn't to get people to invest. The idea is to get people to know, like, and trust you so
Hmm.
that by the time you do get to that point where you're making them an offer, they've already said yes in their minds.
Right.
So they don't have to do
Right.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So yeah, I think that's basically the way we put things together, and it's all automated, and we set up a CRM for you.
Hmm.
We put together the your investors educational webinar on
Mm,
how they can get into this. And the educational webinar, generally speaking, does not have an offer, and it's literally teaching the audience something like
right.
it depends on who your avatar is and who you are as a company on what we're going to actually teach them, but we're going to teach them something. We're going to give them something so valuable and makes you look so smart and gets them to trust you so much that they can't help but want to invest with you.
Right.
And one of the greatest examples I say to this is like, you don't know what we're going to teach your client, your investors, until we have a deep dive into you and your company and stuff like that.
Right.
Because I'll give it, yeah, one of my favorite examples is we had a client who wanted to invest in multifamily buildings in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is one of my favorite markets. I love
Really?
it. And like, yeah, I love it. And that's for another podcast and another day. But he was like, I want to invest in multifamily properties in Oklahoma City. And I was like, okay, that's good. And the more I got to know him and I really started figuring out who his avatar was, this guy is a white guy who who is a human resources manager. And
Uh-huh.
he lived in Orlando. And one of his first human resources job was at Disney. And the
Mm,
reason why he used to work for Disney is he had a love for Disney. And even after
mm.
leaving, and then he switched over to human resources and real estate or something like that. And even after leaving Disney, he still had this passion for Disney. He just loved
Really?
Disney, loved how the company ran, loved how everything, what Disney magic stood for and stuff like that. And so he's telling us this with this great amount of passion. And I was like, man, your avatar is older Hispanic women who work in human resources in Orlando. What we're going to educate them about is how, because there's a huge concentration of older Hispanic women in human resources in specifically Orlando. Like,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
like
that's his people.
you would think to look for that particular avatar, right? But that's literally when we put it through I built multiple tools to figure this all out, by the way. It's not just
Right.
like I came up with that off the top of my head. AI helped me. Um,
Yeah, you're smart
so
enough.
so we came up with that. Yeah. And then we were like, your passion for Disney is so strong that we're gonna talk about how to apply Disney magic
Mm,
to multifamily investing. And
yeah.
that's what we taught people. So
See,
like I can't possibly know what we're going to teach your
yeah,
audience until we do
that's
those kinds of deep dives.
see, and I always have a question about that. I don't have a background in something else. So like I'm so jealous
Right.
of people who have that. Like literally, I started off like,
Don't be.
yeah, yeah,
There's
like I'm
plenty of
like
ways we can do it.
well, I started off in real estate. So like I work with
Yeah.
Bob and Jamie. Jamie still works with me, right? Like with Success Mortgage Investments.
Yeah.
So I started off in the finance side. It was just like they did mortgages and debt. I went off to find deals and structured the deals financially, with hard money and all the
Mhm.
other stuff, and they funded them, or I've got my own deals funded. So like I didn't start off in another industry to whereas I can connect really well. Like I know, like you said, like I know what your problems are. Like you have money sitting in an account, you're busy, you can't go do it. But it doesn't connect me because that's why my wife Sharon laughs. She's like, you're like so disjointed with the rest of the planet because you haven't really. The only job I had was when I was in Texas. I got in trouble, but I had to get a job. But I was doing real estate at the time, and I was working with Bob and Jamie. I sold insurance and annuities. So one of my main mentors that he has a company. He actually was one of the major players people. He's one of my biggest investors actually. Um, you know, it was annuities sales and insurance. That is the only real like I was in the military and I worked a bunch of like side pocket jobs and stuff like that, but there was never really any like connection. I was the top sales guy in the office. I set up, a lunch and I sold annuities and I left, they did, but during that I was doing real estate. So like the only real
Yeah.
thing that connects me really is real estate. Um, so, I was like, if somebody paid you $1 million to, like you said, if I met your guy and I'm like, hey, if someone paid you $1 million to talk about something, what would it be? He'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
Disney,
Yeah.
for me, I'm
Yeah.
like,
So how do we then apply that? And I mean, like
yeah,
that's an extreme example of something, but
right,
like you don't always apply, the easiest thing to talk about is things you know about, right? So like that's why
true,
we try
true,
to look for those
little,
those thread lines, as you called them, I think, where we
yeah,
can we can we can make sure that we really make it so that you're passionate about whatever you're talking about, and you also know what you're talking about, right? And and
right.
and that is conveyed. You can't fake that kind of stuff in a lot of ways
Mm,
to the
true,
to
true.
the
And that's what I
investor.
want to do too. Like as we build our club out and we have people joining, because I'm just teaching people how to be deal makers. But my goal is to bring you guys in and be like, hey, why don't like to have them a part of what you're doing, towards I can be like, hey, you
Mm.
know what, you should probably be a part of what Jillian's doing at her company to put you on the right path. Because it's one, I mean, I know too, they're two separate businesses. Raising capital, and finding deals or raising money or for your real estate or your business. They are either two businesses or they're two functions of one business. The whole what comes first, the chicken or the egg, is like, well, they're kind of both happening at the same time. Because if
Mm.
not, you won't have a chicken or an egg when it's all done. So I would love to do that. And what you're saying, man, like it makes so much sense, But truth be told, I'm always jealous when somebody works someplace, they come out of it and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start this thing and I'm gonna go back to my network of people there because they know me. And I'm like, man, I should have got a job when I was young, but a real one. So
Not necessary, I
that's
promise.
funny. That's funny. So that said, so we talked about the through line. I know, and I apologize that I got off track because I got all excited talking to you. But so what do you think it like you're seeing what's going on out there? And I'll bridge this one, two questions. So I'll ask the second one after. What do you think right now, like you see a lot of that people are doing that people should probably avoid? Like what are like people are not doing something right? We've talked about it in the past. I noticed that a lot of people are, the jig is up, the days of easy money is gone. You kind of hinted on a little bit, like people like over promising like these high returns. Is that the main challenge that you see with people nowadays, that it's lowering the trust because people have made mistakes in the real estate side for raising capital, promising investors? You think that barriers change? Like, is that a huge problem, or has it always been? It's just now just
It's a massive problem. I mean, Yeah, you and I both know people who've lost a ton of money in the last year or two, right?
Yeah.
From people who were very slack and
Hmm.
looked like they were incredibly successful. And so the trust is gone there. People like think like, oh, I'm gonna go one of the big guys. I'll go to the BlackRocks or the Blackstones and invest
Yeah.
in their REITs instead of doing
Small deal in the neighborhood.
this
Yeah.
nonsense like of investing with syndicators. So, if you're a valuable syndicator that takes good care of your investors, that's worth so much.
Hmm.
Because there's so many out there who have lost money. So and you also have to overcome the strength of the stock market right now, right?
Right.
Because I mean, I have one guy I invested with who is a broken man. He's a good person, but he's a broken man.
Mm.
He had some deals go really south. He lost a lot of money on behalf of investors. And I remember he saying to me, I had a friend who, while I was doing this real estate investing thing, said to me, don't do that. Just buy Nvidia stock. Just keep buying Nvidia. Just keep buying Nvidia. He's like, I'd
Mm.
be a multimillionaire now. Instead, I'm on the brink of bankruptcy. So you have
Right.
to overcome those kinds of stories now in the real
Hmm.
estate market. And I think you can. You just have to
Yeah.
you have to figure out how. Because
Right.
and here's the thing. Why like well Jillian, you just made it sound really, 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 really pessimistic. Yeah,
No,
I know, but there's always a story to be told. You need
that's
to
right.
know the risks. You need to know where the challenges are, of course,
Hmm.
but but people always need to have somewhere to live. They always
That's right.
need to have somewhere to vacation. People aren't going to start carrying tents on their backs and popping them up wherever they go to,
That's right.
to
Ever.
stay. Yeah, and
I
and
won't.
still, even if they do that, they're staying on somebody's land. So,
Hmm.
you know, y- real estate will always have some value. It's just which real estate located where and
Right.
has what function. Look,
Yeah.
those are the things we got to look for. So, you know, what are we looking at now? Data centers,
Hmm.
right?
Big
Okay,
time.
that's not where
Yeah.
anybody lives, but data centers, Amazon warehouses. Okay, so now let's get past the commercial for a second and let's like look at some other opportunities. Um, I'm personally investing in a lot of short-term rentals,
Yeah. Yeah. I
small
saw that.
boutique hotels in
Hmm.
pretty places. Because
Right.
I actually spoke to a futurist several years ago, this guy named Dr. Ian Pearson.
Hmm.
And one comment he made to myself and my business partner at the time was pretty places never go out of style,
Oh,
ever.
you know what, man? That is
People will
my,
always
yeah,
invest in pretty
my
places.
mantra.
San Diego.
Hmm. You know
So, I
what's,
mean, like,
yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Sexy buildings. You drive by it. We were just talking about that. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm at the part of my career where, like, I'd rather slept through raising money and buy a really nice property long term with my investors than to go buy some beat up property and fix it up and make it nice. Like to your part, like I always tell people, like let's be honest. Even was that Harvard study where they put like a ugly person and a pretty person, they stuck a baby in the room and the baby automatically went to the better looking person. I was like, that's just human nature and investments as well. Harder to get, but if you had to choose between the two, you struck a nerve with me because I love that. I'm like, dude, I'd rather take the nice property, less returns all day,
Yeah,
all day.
well, I mean, like, I have to give it up to Grant Cardone on that one. I learned a lot from
Yeah.
him in that regard. I used to represent him. I did a bunch of his public facing funds.
Yeah.
And I remember, some of those properties he was buying were so expensive.
Hmm.
Like I remember thinking, oh my God, this is such an expensive property. Like da 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 da. Like how do people afford these rents? But he bought in like Miami. Miami's
Yeah.
just blown up, right?
Right.
He bought
Right.
in like, in Austin. Austin's
Hmm.
just blown up. And he bought Class A buildings where he knew professionals were going to be moving in there and they weren't going to
That's right.
necessarily be buying houses they were going to rent. He just
Hmm.
knew. And he
That's right.
said, I like the vibe of a property. I've heard people
Yeah.
saying that going, that's the stupidest thing I've
You
ever
know what?
heard.
I do it when I pull up. I'm like, nah, I'm good. Single family houses we've ever done, same thing. I'm like, dude, if I don't want to move in it, I don't want it. Like other people have that. Well, I don't have to live in it. Well, you might. So I agree
It
with you.
does.
Yeah. Huh? What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
1000% agree. I do. Like even all the deals I look at are really nice. Like to the part to
Yeah.
where I'm like, I love this. I don't even know if we're gonna get it, but like I want it. And then like, but that's the but to your part of the beginning of what you have to go through to do this business anyways. It's almost like, you know, I'd rather be like, I'm gonna hang on because I know I if I like it, I know somebody else is gonna like this. I know I can go to a company or a firm that's gonna want this as opposed to just some mom and pop at some point that are gonna run out of money or something. Someone will always want
Right.
if you can collect the right assets. And I 1000% agree. I do. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
that's exciting for
No,
me. You
no,
know,
no, no.
I
No,
like to
that's
do
I can tend to go on.
I like to do this part with because okay, yeah, I sit on the other side of the fence. So, and I find this to be true, and people don't like it because it seems a little ah, it seems weird
Yeah.
because I'm like, okay, so I'll go through it. I like a lot of people will be like, hey, as an investor, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. But I watched a lot of people like I have some of my investors that invested with like Ty Lopez, a couple of other people. I don't mind name dropping. A couple of other people that are out there that are raising capital that are still out there raising capital. And they sent me the deals, and I was like, I don't know, man, I wouldn't do this deal. And they were like, why? It's this and that. And I was like, dude, like it just doesn't make sense. And now I'm in a lot of groups that people are bitching that they got taken advantage of. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, you didn't get taken advantage of. You wanted to get taken advantage of. Like, you're looking at this as a premise towards it's not an investment. There was no logic behind what you did. You just jumped in. They're like, oh, they're going to give 18% returns on my money and they're going to do this. And I was like, there's no way they're going to be able to give you 18% return on your money. Like, in my mind, that's common sense from the perspective of like like I always tell my investors, I'm like, there has to be a high level of responsibility on everyone's part because we're partners. So like I think that's missed. I know like there was one guy he did something. I guess he's under like they some investigation. I went to one of their things that they did. They had the $100 million network that they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we invested in this thing with this guy and he took our money. And I was like, dude, I listened to the stuff he was offering, and you know, you can kind of see it. There was like some other thing they were doing with the Ever Bowls, and I was just like, you can kind of see that too. Like at some point, and maybe I'm a real estate person, so I'm looking for the real things. But I'm just like,
Mm.
even with our stuff, when we initially started, we had this pref, and then later we went back and changed our documents and took it out. But I was like, I don't think that's gonna fly. I think there still needs to be some targets to be hit and some disclosures to be had. But I think if you hamstring your operating partner, your sponsor, two things are gonna happen. They're going to steal money or they're going to steal time. Period. End of story. Same with your management company. You can't pay them. They're going to not answer the phone all the time because they're doing something else. They're going to have to go on to another project to make up this money and to kind of throw good money at bad to pay you back. And I was like, but if you do that, if that becomes an expectation and you grill down so hard, then you got to kind of see it from That's what I do. I'm like, well, how can this go wrong and how can I fix it? Get the right deal, number one. If you're an investor, you need to ask, like, how are you guys going to make money? Because usually
Yeah.
what they'll do is like, like, what are your fees? Like, all right, well, our fees are the same as industry norm fees. And then outside of the industry norm fees, they'll be like, okay, so where's the pref? Because the last guy's talking about they're going to do like an 8% pref with this hurdle and a waterfall. And I'm like, well, first, it's super confusing. That's first. And two, when you really understand all that stuff, it's a noose around your guy's neck. And if you have a sub, not a great property, we're gonna do a hotel conversion in like as my joke, Oklahoma. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like then Tulsa. And I'm like, all right, how are you gonna do that? It said the rents are gonna be 2 grand. I'm like, the rents are $800 across the board in that state, always have been, always will be. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah. So I'm like, like it's cool for them to make these promises, but it's like you're also, for me, I'm always like, I don't tell them, but I'm listening. So I think because I've always been on the other side of the fence, and I watch other people get beat up that have well intentions. Now there's some people, there's some bad actors out there. Don't get me wrong. Someone we both know did a fund, and I think he's in jail right now. Because I think he got like his wife a boob job, and he did a bunch of stuff. Because
Oh no.
I like to read lawsuits, so I know what not to do. Because it's like, I said it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
he bought like,
Yeah.
cars, boob jobs, paying himself, commingling funds. It was a problem. But I talked to the people who had invested with him. I'm like, you guys couldn't see this going in the door, and they're like, no. And I was like, dude, you have to also be a little bit leery, not about judging them, but you also have to take some responsibility of looking like it was so good that, you know, how can this fail? And he had no way to tell them like, hey, here's how I'm going to get paid. So it's like he's going to get paid, and it may come at
Yeah.
a cost. So I find that to be true too. Not that I don't have this huge lecture about it, but I do talk to the investors. I'm like, hey, not that if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true because that's one-sided. But the other side to it is like you need to be concerned also about your general partner and your sponsor. How are they going to make money? What are they going to do? What if they're not making money? Are they going to take their eyes off the ball and have to get into a new project because this project is tanking? They're not getting paid. All of that matters.
That's the worst. Oh, that's the worst. And like that's what I say. Oh my gosh, you just brought up such a great point. That's what going back to like don't offer more than you can afford to pay.
Yeah.
It's just not just affordability like on terms of like what the project can afford, but also what you can afford as a GP. Like
Yeah.
I never invest with GPs who purposely starve themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
interested.
Right.
Like if you are so desperate that you're willing to not pay yourself, I'm not interested because that's a
Yeah.
disaster waiting to happen.
That sounds
It
like a
it it
capital
it
call.
yeah, it looks like a disaster waiting to
Mhm.
happen. It looks like a capital call waiting to happen. It looks like and more importantly, what I think, it looks like a GP,
Mhm.
um, it looks like a GP who will eventually get bored or desperate. And if they get
Yeah.
bored or desperate, then who's watching them? Who's tending the farm,
That's
right?
right.
So I don't want to see any GPs who are like, I'm not going to get paid until you get paid. No, 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 you get paid something because your time is valuable. It's not to be valued. I want you to
Yeah.
value your time. I'll
Right.
value your time. I want you to take care of this. Like you need to step up and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that. And that's why I wanted to wonder like what you see. Like one of them was like, people not paying attention and bad actors, but then the other side was, bless you. The other side
Thank you.
was
Sorry about
like,
that.
no, you're good. The other side was that. So what do you think, this is called straight talk about money. What do you think people get wrong in just a normal conversation about money and how they should be doing stuff so far as the business side as well as the investor side?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is they want something, um, like some kind of testimonial from an investor of like the reason why they invested with one of my clients was because the um the the GP was always very pessimistic.
Mm,
Like, in other words, and it wasn't so much that they were pessimistic. Clearly, they weren't that pessimistic because they were doing deals and
right,
they were
right,
doing these deals, but they never held back on what they thought could go wrong with the
right.
investors. They
Yeah.
never they never tried to shove rose-colored glasses onto the investor's face, right?
Mhm.
Saying like everything's amazing and awesome and wonderful and it's gonna go great. And I've invested in those deals. Like I'm invested in one of those deals right now where the GP was super optimistic.
Yeah.
What, and you go, well, Jillian, why did you invest? Because I knew she was wrong, but I also knew it was going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, for sure.
this is one of
Yeah.
those few circumstances where you can be like, I know you're wrong, but I appreciate your enthusiasm. And the example is I'm a large investor in a boutique hotel in
Hmm.
the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And I had gone out to the Dominican Republic to meet her to look at the property. And she was like, we should be open. And she named some date. It was like 6 months into the future. We'll be
Hmm.
reopened in 6 months into the future. And I was like, that's cute.
You're like, that's nice.
Like, I live in Puerto Rico. And I know that if this property was in Puerto Rico, we would be not opened in 6 months in the future.
Yeah.
So there's no way that you're opening 6 months into the future here in the Dominican Republic.
Right.
But you can figure it out for yourself. But she had made like, okay, let me tell you. So you're like, Jillian, then why would you still invest if you knew that wasn't true? Well, because she had made such an amazing deal on the purchase of this property
Mm.
that I knew it didn't matter if we were like 18 months out
Right.
and we hadn't opened yet. Like
Right.
I'd rather her open right than open wrong
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like rush to open. And she didn't, I knew she wasn't going to have, unless us investors
Hmm.
financially pressured her verbally
Yeah.
um about opening, then everything was going to be okay. And the investors were really cool about it. And when she finally opened, she's like, I know you're probably really angry that it's opening so late, but I had to make sure it was done right. And it's like, no, I knew it was never going
Yeah,
to
we already
open.
knew.
Never
Yeah,
going to
for sure.
happen.
Yeah.
Sophisticated. Investors might not be as sophisticated as me. They might not be able to see through that, right? And so if
Right,
you
right.
tell them 6 months and you open 18 months later, and you have not as sophisticated investors as I am, which will happen, especially if you're getting people who are not professional investors invested into your deal,
That's right.
then you're going to have a lot of angry people on your hands, and you don't need that. So it's good to tell them all the risks. It's good to,
Hmm.
be conservative. And you don't go like this is the thing. Like we underwrite very conservatively. Don't
Mm,
tell me that. Just show me that.
that's right.
Figured that out myself. Like every time somebody's like, we mitigate risk and use all the buzzy
All
words.
the
It's like
buzzwords.
you've already like, listen, is the property going to make money or not? And what's your timeline?
That's
Well,
right.
and if you use like hope or planning, things like that, that's what you should be like. Hope is a word you should use regularly with your investors. We
Yeah.
hope to do this.
We hope to do this, or this is the target,
Yeah,
but
we
it could
hope.
exceed that target. Right,
Not a
right.
bad Hope is not a bad four-letter word.
It's not. You know what I tell people all the time? Like, you better hope because if you, like, because there's so many unknowns. I always say, like, my job is to manage expectations. It's like, I would love for things to be happening tomorrow, but that's kind of not how things work. And there's so many factors at play. I hope that happens. We'll push it to happen, but I can't guarantee that. And here's what I'm going to
Yeah,
do to make sure that if it
right.
doesn't, here's where we are. And you'll know first, right? I'm going to find out. I'm going to go straight to you. Um, so, because that's the easiest way to do that. Yeah. And thanks for sharing that. And that goes right back to what I was saying earlier about the responsibility of the investor, right? Like if you're a partner, because you're a partner in the deal, you're an investor in the deal, but you're a partner. It's good for your partners to have some level of understanding, which goes right back to what you're going to be doing in you guys is like the investor group, the educational piece for you to educate your investors about you, what you know, how to do that prior to it gives somebody an understanding about their partner, not just I'm investing with these people or this group. That's important. It really is.
Right.
So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that said, what do you think it takes to be a major player in this space of in your world, like capital raising, helping other people raise capital? What do you think it really takes to do that?
Like there's a lot of things that it takes. So let's get more specific. Like what do
Okay.
you what when it talks like, are we talking about systems? Are we talking about deals? What give me an idea there.
Well, you're in the space of helping investors strategize capital raising. Like so, I mean,
Right.
naturally, if you're going to do this, you want your company to be one of the top three or number one, right? So it's like, what do you think what does it take to be a major player in that industry, that the line of industry that you're in for you?
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing I always tell people is that when it comes to raising capital, I think what people neglect or neglect to understand is that
Hmm.
there is a before, a during, and an after when it comes to
Hmm.
capital raising. And
Right.
oh, I'm going to have to end soon. I'm so sorry, Victor. But
It's
it
okay.
just
We
flown through
got you.
time. Was that's
We
having
got you.
such a good
Had so much
time
fun.
that I forgot. Yeah. Um, but what I think people what people neglect to understand is that there's a before, a during, and an after when it comes to capital raising.
Hmm.
And people focus on the before, like hardcore. That's where the anxiety sets in, where they like, panic. They woo investors. They do everything that they think the investor, they're the dancing bear, the
Yeah.
trained monkey, whatever. They do whatever they think investors want them to do. And then you start seeing neglect creep in as the
Mm,
during and after comes around. And the
right.
during is like the process for which the investor gets their money through the door. What's that process look like to them? Is there a process? Is there a system, or are you a hot mess when it comes to that?
Right.
Like I'll give it. This isn't a direct example, but it's an example nonetheless. I had a company today. It was a catering company because actually this house I live in is one of the best real estate investments I've ever made, and I'm
Wow.
turning it into a wedding venue.
Oh,
And
cool.
today I said to a catering company, I've seen their ads everywhere on Facebook. They have tons of ads on Facebook. It's like I'm inundated with their ads. So I finally click on it. I'm like, I'm gonna get a quote from this catering company to see if they can cater a birthday party that's happening here
Right.
in a couple of weeks. And so I write them and I'm like, hey, can I get a quote for your services?
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, you got to fill out the form and tell us exactly what you want. I'm like, I just want a Puerto Rican buffet dinner with some appetizers. Give me a quote for that. Like, what can you do for me? Like, I'm a venue. I'm going to order from you on many occasions. Give me a menu that I can deal with. They sent me, 3 pages of potential types of things I could order. Like, okay,
Nothing clear.
just tell me what person for a party of 50.
Right.
And then they're like, sure, fill out this form. And they send me like a Word doc that I've got to like type
Uh,
in like every detail of what I want so that they can get me a cost. Why don't you give me a range? Like two
mm,
appetizers and two mains and a crudité or a charcuterie will cost, 25 to $30 a person. I can work with
right.
that.
Yeah.
But no, instead, you're going to make it really complicated for me. Like, so you have to look at, yeah, and guess what? Now I'm just going to call the next guy who's not going to make me do all that work
Right. Right.
because I'm not going to do this work. I'm not going to, like, I already have to run this venue. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a bride, I'm a
Right.
venue.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I'm not willing to go through that effort. So I just called the next guy. They'll give me
Mm,
a quote. But my point is like that's how you have to like think about the during process for your investors. Are you making it seamless and easy for them to sign and get their documents in and wire their money or ACH their money, whatever they're doing,
mm.
like making it a seamless professional process for them? Or are you still sending them PDFs to fill out and then they have to go and get the wire instructions? Like, how difficult are you making it for them? So we got to make sure it's not difficult. But then comes the after.
Right.
And I have a friend of mine who I invested a lot of money with way back in the day on a property in Santa Barbara and another couple of properties throughout Southern California.
Yeah.
I made a ton of money with her. I think I
Mm,
made 40% ROI. Woman wouldn't communicate with me.
mm.
Didn't hear from her for like months at a time. I'd text her like, "What the hell is going on? Why haven't I heard from you?" Like da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then when she finally gave me my money back with my returns, she's like, "Do you want to invest anymore?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. Like I can't deal with this. Like
Yeah.
it's not worth the risk to me. I don't know what you're up to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the
I'm glad it
mystery.
all worked out, but you're not exactly invoking confidence in me that this is how it's
Mm,
always going to go because your
right.
communication's been so poor." So like that's what you really have to plan out ahead of time. You have
Yeah.
to understand there's a before, a during, and after. And every part of it is equally important, not just for your investors' sake, but for the health of your company and the growth of
That's
your
right.
company's sake.
1000%. And the good part about that, and,
Yeah.
and for people listening, that's why I tell people like, if you want to do this, I'm an investor too. I invested in Cardone Capital. So like, I'm on every monthly call, Ryan, Andres, talk to
He's
the
great
office.
at it, right?
Yeah. So it gives me, even though they're not an institution, it gives me an institutional idea of how things are run
Right.
correctly. So, it gives you something to look up
Yeah.
to, like, hey, I want to do that, or I like the way they do that. This is their reporting, this is their portal. This is every month on the 17th. They're mailing out a check. The next day after that, or the same day, it's a phone call that's going to all the investors. You get on, they go over the good, bad, and the ugly, full blown performance. But to your point, you know, that's a good way to kind of do it, whether it's them or someone else, doesn't matter who, but get with,
Mhm,
be an investor because then you get the opportunity. One, you eat your own dog food. It's kind of tough to be like,
mhm.
I'm gonna invest in my own stuff, but you don't invest someplace else because, it's like, it's like being a cook, but you don't taste your own food. Like you have to taste it to make sure it tastes good. Then when you serve it to somebody else, you kind of have some understanding and you get the feedback, but you're on both sides of that table. So that helps. So thanks for sharing that because a lot of people don't know that it isn't just, you know, one thing. I always, my uncle says that when we talk about dating, it's like what you do to get her is what you got to do to keep her. So it's like same date, same time, same I love yous, the same this, same thing with your investors. It's like call them, talk to them, but make sure that you stay in touch because that is truly how like you said,
Absolutely.
yeah, I like that. I
Yeah.
like that. All right. Well, I know
Thanks.
you gotta go. I know you have to go, but man, I appreciate you so much. Before we
Oh,
go though,
yeah.
how does people get in contact with you? The investor thing that you're doing for your people, like how do they do that?
Oh yeah, so you can we have a school account where you can come and hang
Mm,
out and we'll chat with you. We're not going to sell you anything because honestly, the reality is we only take so many clients a month. I think
mm,
we only take right now we're only taking 5 clients a month. So you
nice.
have to get on our waiting list to
Mm,
for us to help you anyhow. So if you want in the meantime to try to do it yourself and work on it yourself, we give away a ton of free stuff in our school group. And that's capital. I don't even remember the name of the school group. How bad is that? How about this? Everybody just email me, and you can email me at Jillian@findmoreinvestors.com,
Perfect.
and I'll
Perfect.
send you the school account.
Perfect. There you go. There you go. And like I said,
Jillian at Find More Investors.
I'll find the link to the school account and I'll put it in there too. So, but thank you so much for
Yeah,
this.
capital.
Um,
It's
Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure. I had a ton of fun, and it's called Capital Conversations. If you can try to find it on school, but if you can't find it, just email me, Jillian@findmoreinvestors.com, and I will get it to you.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And I appreciate you so much. We didn't even get the chance to go over the dress code and the New Year's Eve thing, but we'll do that next time.
About that earlier. Have you on again, or I'm going to have you on my podcast when I actually start recording it again, and we'll go from there.
For sure, for sure. Well, I appreciate you. Well, have a great day today. Okay, I really appreciate everything and all your help and all the stories and everything that you did. Okay, all right. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.